Thank you so much, Pastor Michael. Thank all of you for coming. Now, I have been across this Commonwealth talking to people, and I am absolutely committed to changing our national vocabulary. And so I'll introduce myself in my own way. My name is E.W. Jackson. I am not an African American. I am an American. I'm not bifurcated, I'm not demarcated, I'm an American. I love my country. I don't apologize for that. And folks, I am so glad to know that in 2 weeks the era of apology will be over. I stood in the Marine Corps office on August 4th, 1970 and raised my hand and took an oath to the Constitution of the United States. Veterans in this room right now know exactly what I'm talking about. That I would preserve, protect, and defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That oath never had an expiration date, and it had no apology clause in it. I don't apologize for being an American. I don't apologize for my country. I'm tired of this moral and cultural relativism that has been sold to so many in this country. Do you believe in American exceptionalism, the president was asked? Well, sure, like the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism and the Italians believe in Italian exceptionalism. Have you noticed any difference between Greece and Italy? The United States of America is the greatest nation the world has ever known. And for anybody who really wants to know my opinion, who wants to ask me, yes, America is better than other nations. We're better people genetically, or somehow we're physiologically superior, but because we are based in better values. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are endowed not by government, not by a king, not by a president, not by a potentate, but we are endowed by our Creator. And what God has given us, we're not letting any government take away from us. How do you love this country so much? This country had slavery once. Folks, America didn't invent slavery. Slavery is an institution that's existed on every continent, in every country in the world that has ever existed. We inherited that institution, but only one nation on earth established itself on the foundational principle of freedom. And no matter who we were when our ancestors came here, whether they fully realized it or not, they were inheriting a nation that would provide more freedom, more opportunity, more hope, more prosperity than any nation that's ever existed on the face of the earth. We don't have anything to apologize to the world for. I'm proud of my country. Our ancestors. I'm not ashamed of my background. I'm an American of African descent. Some of you are of Irish descent, of Italian descent, of Asian descent, of a whole background, and series of various places that people have been drawn from around the world. But folks, this is the full truth of the matter. Our ancestors may have come on different ships, but we're all in the same boat now. Is our common vision. If somebody were to ask me to sum up what I want for our country, what I want my children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren to inherit, it's encompassed in the Pledge of Allegiance that we recite. I want us to be one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I don't want leaders who want to divide us, black against white, men against women, rich against poor, the government versus business. I want to see us become the nation that I believe our founding fathers envisaged for us when they wrote the Declaration of Independence and designed the Constitution of the United States. And somebody needs to tell this president, we don't care whether you're black or white, but we want you to be red, white, and blue. Now, folks, we have been blessed with one of the greatest gifts God has ever given. I mean that. This is a unique place. There's never been any place like it. I don't believe that our founding fathers came together by happenstance. I don't believe that they were thrown together by the waves and whims of fancy. I believe that they were divinely appointed to the task that they performed to give us the nation that we have. But now I want to say something to you that you probably don't expect me to say. Just as they had a divine appointment, so do you. So do you. You are not here by accident. You are not an American by accident. The heritage that they gave us has now fallen to you and fallen to me. And it's up to us to make sure that we fulfill the heritage that we've been given. We found out that freedom is more fragile than most of us ever knew. Here, not just abroad, but here. Ronald Reagan said, and I supported Ronald Reagan, loved Ronald Reagan, thought he was one of the greatest presidents we've ever known. But I didn't take him that seriously when he said, freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. We do not pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for and protected, or we will spend our sunset years telling our children about the United States of America, where men were once free. I believe that that freedom is under threat from within now like never before. The first three words of the Constitution are not we the government, but we the people of the United States. It is up to us to see to it that this great legacy that we've been given is preserved inviolate for our posterity. Folks, our founding fathers were not only ingenious, they were inspired. Because there never had existed a nation like this when people had taught political theory. But the notion of a nation where people's freedom is not given to them by a king, but those freedoms and those rights are inherent in them as who they are as human beings. They are divinely given to them. No government can dispense them or take them away. A unique idea. The idea that we took some of that freedom that we've been given and we agreed to lend it to the government to serve us. We don't have rulers in America. We have servant leaders who represent us. And in fact, I'm looking forward to the day when we get more leaders who are willing to tell the government, we don't work for you, you work for us. They designed a constitution that protected us even from themselves. That's how selfless and how honorable they were. They weren't perfect men, no. But they were selfless, honorable men, and they knew that the hearts of people and the willingness of people to dominate others could get out of control, and they designed a constitution to prohibit that, to prevent that. One of the greatest men of stature this nation's ever known, George Washington, my favorite American hero, presided over that constitutional convention. They trusted him, they admired him. Great men like Jefferson, Patrick Henry, others, they looked up to George Washington, and yet the Constitution was designed to protect us even from him. That's right. That it had separation of powers so that no one agency of the government would exercise absolute authority, that each would check and balance the other. Limited and enumerated powers so that the federal government was supposed to be able to do only that which the Constitution specifically authorized it to do. Not anything it wants to do, not every good idea that anybody comes up with. Folks, we all have a lot of good ideas. And politicians are always coming up with good ideas. But it doesn't mean that they're constitutional.
That's right.
People say, well, you know, we ought to have a debate about whether we should be funding Planned Parenthood. There's no debate. The Constitution doesn't allow it. It's not permissible. And the 10th Amendment, that all powers not specifically delegated to the federal government by the Constitution are reserved to the states and to the people. Every single one of these principles has been violated by the administration in power. Look, they have just run completely rampant over the Constitution. The appointment of czars while the Senate was in session. The appointment of czars without any accountability to the people. Ramming health care down our throat. The mandate that we purchase something that we don't want to purchase. In other words, making us take our money and spend it on something we have not chosen to spend it on. And then telling us that this is what's good and right and best for us. Because, of course, this president and this administration and many of these politicians, these liberals, they always know what's best for us. There's only one problem. And look, the idea of health care for all sounds good, houses for all, cars for all, money for all of that sounds good. The problem, folks, is that the only way to do that is to follow the horrible mistake of history that was followed by Lenin and Stalin and Mao and Castro and Pol Pot and so many others that leads to nothing but misery and death. Because when you tell people that you are going to force them and you're going to make them and you're going to take their property and what they have worked to earn and do with it what you will because you know what's best, sooner or later somebody stands up and says, no, you won't. No, you won't. And folks, when a government has decided to exercise tyranny over people and somebody stands up, it always ends at the point of a gun. Mao Zedong killed 65 million Chinese. Stalin killed 20 million Russians. Pol Pot murdered 2 million Cambodians. The Vietnamese communists murdered 2 million Vietnamese. It always ends the same way. Well, freedom beats in our hearts and runs in our veins. We are a free people, and we're not letting anybody take our freedom away from us. We want to stand